1926.1435 Tower cranes for Subpart C. Cranes and derricks in construction. 1926.1435 A. This section contains supplemental requirements for tower cranes. All sections of this subpart apply to tower cranes unless specified otherwise. 1926.1435 B. Erecting, climbing, and dismantling. 1926.1435 B1, Section 1926.1403, Assembly/Disassembly Selection of Manufacturer or Employer Procedures, Section 1926.1404, Assembly/Disassembly General Requirements, applies to all assembly and disassembly operations, Section 1926.1405, Disassembly Additional Requirements for Dismantling of Booms and Jibs, applies to both the use of manufacturer procedures and employer procedures, and Section 1926.1406, Assembly/Disassembly Employer Procedures General Requirements, apply to tower cranes, except as otherwise specified, except that the term assembly/disassembly is replaced by erecting, climbing, and dismantling, and the term disassembly is replaced by dismantling. 1926.1435 B2, Dangerous Areas, Self-Erecting Tower Cranes. In addition to the requirements in Section 1926.1404 E, for self-erecting tower cranes, the following applies: employees must not be in or under the tower, jib, or rotating portion of the crane during erecting, climbing and dismantling operations until the crane is secured in a locked position and the competent person in charge indicates it is safe to enter this area, unless the manufacturer's instructions direct otherwise, and only the necessary personnel are permitted in this area. 1926.1435 B3, Foundations and Structural Supports. Tower crane foundations and structural supports, including both the portions of the structure used for support and the means of attachment, must be designed by the manufacturer or a registered professional engineer. 1926.1435 B4, Addressing Specific Hazards. The requirements in Section 1926.1404 H1 through 9 apply. In addition, the S/D director must address the following: 1926.1435 B4 I through B4 3 Foundations and Structural Supports. The S/D director must determine that tower crane foundations and structural supports are installed in accordance with their design. Loss of backward stability. Backward stability before swinging self-erecting cranes or cranes on traveling or static undercarriages. Wind speed. Wind must not exceed the speed recommended by the manufacturer or, where manufacturer does not specify this information, the speed determined by a qualified person. 1926.1435 B5, Plumb tolerance. Towers must be erected plumb to the manufacturer's tolerance and verified by a qualified person. Where the manufacturer does not specify plumb tolerance, the crane tower must be plumb to a tolerance of at least 1:500, approximately 1 inch and 40 feet. 1926.1435 B6, Multiple tower crane job sites. On job sites where more than one fixed jib, hammerhead, tower crane is installed, the cranes must be located such that no crane can come in contact with the structure of another crane. Cranes are permitted to pass over one another. 1926.1435 B7, Climbing procedures. Prior to, and during, all climbing procedures, including inside climbing and top climbing, the employer must 1926.1435 B7 A and B7 2 comply with all manufacturer prohibitions. Have a registered professional engineer verify that the host structure is strong enough to sustain the forces imposed through the braces, brace anchorages, and supporting floors. 1926.1435 B8, Counterweight/ballast. 1926.1435 B8 I and B8 2, equipment must not be erected, dismantled or operated without the amount and position of counterweight and or ballast in place as specified by the manufacturer or a registered professional engineer familiar with the equipment. The maximum counterweight and or ballast specified by the manufacturer or registered professional engineer familiar with the equipment must not be exceeded. 1926.1435 C. Signs. The size and location of signs installed on tower cranes must be in accordance with manufacturer specifications. Where these are unavailable, a registered professional engineer familiar with the type of equipment involved must approve in writing the size and location of any signs. 1926.1435 D. Safety devices. 1926.1435 D1. Section 1926.1415 does not apply to tower cranes. 1926.1435 D2. The following safety devices are required on all tower cranes unless otherwise specified. 1926.1435 D2 I through 1926.1435 D2 X. Boom stops on luffing boom type tower cranes. Jib stops on luffing boom type tower cranes if equipped with a jib attachment. Travel rail end stops at both ends of travel rail. Travel rail clamps on all travel bogies. Integrally mounted check valves on all load-supporting hydraulic cylinders. Hydraulic system pressure limiting device. The following brakes, which must automatically set in the event of pressure loss or power failure, are required. A hoist brake on all hoists. Swing brake. Trolley brake. Rail travel brake. Deadman control or forced neutral return control, hand, levers. Emergency stop switch at the operator's station. Trolley end stops must be provided at both ends of travel of the trolley. 1926.1435 D3. Proper operation required. Operations must not begin unless the devices listed in this section are in proper working order. If a device stops working properly during operations, the operator must safely stop operations. The equipment must be taken out of service, and operations must not resume until the device is again working properly. See section 1926.1417 F. Alternative measures are not permitted to be used. 1926.1435 E. Operational aids. 1926.1435 E1. Section 1926.1416 does not apply to tower cranes. 1926.1435 E2. The devices listed in this section, operational aids, are required on all tower cranes covered by this subpart, unless otherwise specified. 1926.1435 E3. Operations must not begin unless the operational aids are in proper working order, except where the employer meets the specified temporary alternative measures. More protective alternative measures specified by the tower crane manufacturer, if any, must be followed. See section 1926.1417 J for additional requirements. 1926.1435 E4. If an operational aid stops working properly during operations, the operator must safely stop operations until the temporary alternative measures are implemented or the device is again working properly. If a replacement part is no longer available, the use of a substitute device that performs the same type of function is permitted and is not considered a modification under section 1926.1434. 1926.1435 E5. Category I. Operational aids and alternative measures. Operational aids listed in this paragraph that are not working properly must be repaired no later than 7 calendar days after the deficiency occurs. Exception: if the employer documents that it has ordered the necessary parts within 7 calendar days of the occurrence of the deficiency, the repair must be completed within 7 calendar days of receipt of the parts. 1926.1435 E5 I. Trolley travel limiting device. The travel of the trolley must be restricted at both ends of the jib by a trolley travel limiting device to prevent the trolley from running into the trolley end stops. Temporary alternative measures. 1926.1435 E5 I A and B. Option A. The trolley rope must be marked, so it can be seen by the operator, at a point that will give the operator sufficient time to stop the trolley prior to the end stops. Option B. A spotter who is in direct communication with the operator must be used when operations are conducted within 10 feet of the outer or inner trolley end stops. 1926.1435 E5 2. Boom hoist limiting device. The range of the boom must be limited at the minimum and maximum radius. Temporary alternative measures. Clearly mark the cable, so it can be seen by the operator, at a point that will give the operator sufficient time to stop the boom hoist within the minimum and maximum boom radius, or use a spotter who is in direct communication with the operator to inform the operator when this point is reached. 1926.1435 E5.3 Anti-2 blocking device. The tower crane must be equipped with a device which automatically prevents damage from contact between the load block, overhaul ball, or similar component, and the boom tip, or fixed upper block or similar component. The devices must prevent such damage at all points where two blocking could occur. Temporary alternative measures. Clearly mark the cable so it can be seen by the operator at a point that will give the operator sufficient time to stop the hoist to prevent two blocking, or use a spotter who is in direct communication with the operator to inform the operator when this point is reached. 1926.1435 E5.4 Hoist drum lower limiting device. Tower cranes manufactured after November 8, 2011 must be equipped with a device that prevents the last two wraps of hoist cable from being spooled off the drum. Temporary alternative measures. Mark the cable so it can be seen by the operator at a point that will give the operator sufficient time to stop the hoist prior to last two wraps of hoist cable being spooled off the drum, or use a spotter who is in direct communication with the operator to inform the operator when this point is reached. 1926.1435 E5 Load moment limiting device. The tower crane must have a device that prevents moment overloading. Temporary alternative measures. A radius indicating device must be used. If the tower crane is not equipped with a radius indicating device, the radius must be measured to ensure the load is within the rated capacity of the crane. In addition, the weight of the load must be determined from a source recognized by the industry, such as the load's manufacturer, or by a calculation method recognized by the industry, such as calculating a steel beam from measured dimensions and a known per foot weight, or by other equally reliable means. This information must be provided to the operator prior to the lift. 1926.1435 E5.6 Hoist line pull limiting device. The capacity of the hoist must be limited to prevent overloading, including each individual gear ratio if equipped with a multiple speed hoist transmission. Temporary alternative measures. The operator must ensure that the weight of the load does not exceed the capacity of the hoist, including for each individual gear ratio if equipped with a multiple speed hoist transmission. 1926.1435 E5.7 Rail travel limiting device. The travel distance in each direction must be limited to prevent the travel bogies from running into the end stops or buffers. Temporary alternative measures. A spotter who is in direct communication with the operator must be used when operations are conducted within 10 feet of either end of the travel rail end stops. The spotter must inform the operator of the distance of the travel bogies from the end stops or buffers. 1926.1435 E5.8 Boom hoist drum positive locking device and control. The boom hoist drum must be equipped with a control that will enable the operator to positively lock the boom hoist drum from the cab. Temporary alternative measures. The device must be manually set when required if an electric, hydraulic, or automatic control is not functioning. 1926.1435 E6 Category 2 Operational aids and alternative measures. Operational aids listed in this paragraph that are not working properly must be repaired no later than 30 calendar days after the deficiency occurs. Exception, if the employer documents that it has ordered the necessary parts within 7 calendar days of the occurrence of the deficiency, and the part is not received in time to complete the repair in 30 calendar days, the repair must be completed within 7 calendar days of receipt of the parts. 1926.1435 E6 I Boom angle or hook radius indicator. 1926.1435 E6 I A through C Luffing boom tower cranes must have a boom angle indicator readable from the operator's station. Hammerhead tower cranes manufactured after November 8, 2011 must have a hook radius indicator readable from the operator's station. Temporary alternative measures. Hook radii or boom angle must be determined by measuring the hook radii or boom angle with a measuring device. 1926.1435 E6.2 Trolley travel deceleration device. The trolley speed must be automatically reduced prior to the trolley reaching the end limit in both directions. Temporary alternative measure. The employer must post a notice in the cab of the crane notifying the operator that the trolley travel deceleration device is malfunctioning and instructing the operator to take special care to reduce the trolley speed when approaching the trolley in limits. 1926.1435 E6 3 Boom hoist deceleration device. The boom speed must be automatically reduced prior to the boom reaching the minimum or maximum radius limit. Temporary alternative measure. The employer must post a notice in the cab of the crane notifying the operator that the boom hoist deceleration device is malfunctioning and instructing the operator to take special care to reduce the boom speed when approaching the minimum or maximum radius limits. 1926.1435 E6 4 Load hoist deceleration device. The load speed must be automatically reduced prior to the hoist reaching the upper limit. Temporary alternative measure. The employer must post a notice in the cab of the crane notifying the operator that the load hoist deceleration device is malfunctioning and instructing the operator to take special care to reduce the load speed when approaching the upper limits. 1926.1435 E6 V Wind speed indicator. A device must be provided to display the wind speed and must be mounted above the upper rotating structure on tower cranes. On self-erecting cranes, it must be mounted at or above the jib level. Temporary alternative measures. Use of wind speed information from a properly functioning indicating device on another tower crane on the same site, or a qualified person estimates the wind speed. 1926.1435 E6 6 Load indicating device. Cranes manufactured after November 8, 2011 must have a device that displays the magnitude of the load on the hook. Displays that are part of load moment limiting devices that display the load on the hook meet this requirement. Temporary alternative measures. The weight of the load must be determined from a source recognized by the industry, such as the load's manufacturer, or by a calculation method recognized by the industry, such as calculating a steel beam from measured dimensions and a known per foot weight, or by other equally reliable means. This information must be provided to the operator prior to the lift. 1926.1435 F. Inspections. 1926.1435 F1 Section 1926.1412 Inspections applies to tower cranes, except that the term assembly is replaced by erection. Section 1926.1413 Wire rope inspection applies to tower cranes. 1926.1435 F2 Pre-erection inspection. Before each crane component is erected, it must be inspected by a qualified person for damage or excessive wear. 1926.1435 F2 I through F2 3 The qualified person must pay particular attention to components that will be difficult to inspect thoroughly during shift inspections. If the qualified person determines that a component is damaged or worn to the extent that it would create a safety hazard if used on the crane, that component must not be erected on the crane unless it is repaired and, upon re-inspection by the qualified person, found to no longer create a safety hazard. If the qualified person determines that, though not presently a safety hazard, the component needs to be monitored, the employer must ensure that the component is checked in the monthly inspections. Any such determination must be documented, and the documentation must be available to any individual who conducts a monthly inspection. 1926.1435 F3 Post-erection inspection. In addition to the requirements in Section 1926.1412 C, the following requirements must be met. 1926.1435 F3 I and F3 2 A load test using certified weights, or scaled weights using a certified scale with a current certificate of calibration, must be conducted after each erection. The load test must be conducted in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions when available. Where these instructions are unavailable, the test must be conducted in accordance with written load test procedures developed by a registered professional engineer familiar with the type of equipment involved. 1926.1435 F4 Monthly. The following additional items must be included. 1926.1435 F4 I and F4 2 Tower, mast, bolts and other structural bolts, for loose or dislodged condition, from the base of the tower crane up or, if the crane is tied to or braced by the structure, those above the uppermost brace support. The uppermost tie-in, braces, floor supports and floor wedges where the tower crane is supported by the structure, for loose or dislodged components. 1926.1435 F5 Annual. In addition to the items that must be inspected under Section 1926.1412 F, all turntable and tower bolts must be inspected for proper condition and torque.